So I'm here to welcome T.S. Anil, the CEO of Monzo, who joined Monzo at the start of the pandemic. Pretty tough time to join a new business. And he joined after more than 2 decades in the financial services industry at traditional banks ranging from Citi to Standard Chartered. So he's got a great expertise in terms of looking at the moment right now that we face in financial markets. Obviously, we've got both at the fintech sector, lots of challenges to come about access to finances. They're cutting back on spending, they're cutting back on employees in order to secure enough funds to sort of last the next few years. You've got massive turbulence in financial markets, very high inflation, concerns about public debt. Lots of apocalypse to come, basically. I was just in Washington at the weekend, and Larry Summers, who predicted inflation correctly, is now predicting recession next year in America. And if you read the Financial Times today, you've got a crash in the financial markets in America. So there's a lot happening, and a lot for a fintech like, sitting in your shoes to be preparing for. And you don't have any blood on your shoes yet. But let's talk about, as you look at Monzo and some of these risks which are coming on the macro side, what are you worried about at the moment, and how are you sort of managing through prioritizing how big those risks really are for your company?
Great. Well, excited to be here, Caroline. And thanks for that question. So I've seen cycles before, as have you through your career, I know. And what's interesting is that in many of these cycles, what ends up happening is that you separate the great companies from the others, and the great companies are the ones that are building long-term sustainable models, from the other companies which have either just ridden a wave or have built a business where the revenue and the business model is not sustainable, or it's not great for customers, or it just relies on some version of cheap cash. Right? So I think this crisis will not be different in that sense, and there will be a separation between different kinds of companies in each sector, which is exciting in some ways. As it relates to Monzo, we're incredibly well positioned. We're well capitalized. Our business is growing at an incredibly exciting pace, both in terms of number of users, but also revenues. And we're building a responsible business, a business that is centered around customers. So we think it's unassailable from that perspective, because we're building a business model that makes money when customers do what's good for them, as opposed to making money when customers are vulnerable or when they make mistakes. Leaning into your point about the crisis itself, we will continue to be rigorous in the way we do it. We're continuing to invest for the long term. We continue to build out our business. And most importantly, we're here to take care of our customers. Rising cost of living and the overall macroeconomic context will make it hard for some customers. And it's important for us that Monzo stands by those customers and actually helps them. If you look at the Monzo product itself, we have a great set of tools inside of the app that are meant to help customers manage their cash flows better. Budgeting tools, giving people the transparency and visibility over their money, are features that are required at any point in time, and certainly at a time like this.
Now, can you sort of talk in specifics about what you're seeing your customers actually doing? Are you seeing evidence yet that those tools are being used more often now because of the cost of living crisis and higher energy prices? Can you just give some examples of tangible sort of changes that you're seeing in terms of how customers are using your products?
So we're not seeing significant changes just yet, because the usage of most of our features has always been very high. So for instance, one of our most loved features is the idea of creating pots inside of your current account, and pots for different needs. So features like that have always been used. And we continue to build more stuff as well. So whether it's giving customers a view of trends of their spending, giving customers the ability to sort their salaries, create pots for bills. So all of those features have always had high usage. We're not seeing any dramatic change just yet. But I know it's there for customers as they get on board and want to manage the money better.
But as you think about the sort of your plans for product development over you have ambitious plans anyway. What are you sort of changing as a result of you're looking at the year and a half ahead? What are you starting to change or slow down?
Sure. So I think you have a good sense of our vision, which is to be the single app, the single financial control center where customers come for all of their financial needs, to transact, to pay, to save, to borrow, and over time to invest as well. So, it's no secret that we're thinking about launching an investments product, giving customers the ability to make their money work even harder for them. So across these big product categories, we will continue to invest and make the existing products even better with more tools and features, but also add features and add products that help across that set of customer needs. And we're going to do it in the way that, is true to who Monzo is, which is really about a vision that is about the future of money being about simplicity, about taking away the clutter of having to have money managed in lots of different places and bringing it to a single place, putting in, continue to raise the bar in terms of how we move the industry away from complexity of terms and conditions to transparency of simple terms that anybody can understand. So all of those things which have always been relevant just become more relevant at a time like this, Caroline.
But if you look at the sort of market, 85% of sort of consumer bank accounts are still held by the traditional banks. Do you think they're going to become more conservative about moving their money or sort of their salaries into a company like yours or some of the rivals, faced with this concerns about what's happening in the marketplace?
Sure, well, I can respond at two levels, right? One is clearly the data suggests the exact opposite.
Talk me through the data then.
So we have more customers continue to come to Monzo without us having to spend large amounts of marketing to attract customers. The vast majority of our customer growth is still entirely organic because a customer uses our product and tells their friends and family about it, and they experience the product as well. So the user growth has not slowed. The users that we attract have an incredibly high activation rate. So one of the metrics that we track is weekly active, right? How active are customers with the product? And that continues to increase, and it's close to 60%. Right? The percentage of our customers that use us as the main bank has doubled in the last couple of years. So the data suggests otherwise. But I think to your broader point about 85% of the market being with the incumbent banks, I think that is the reality. Yeah. And for a host of pretty well-documented reasons, incumbents have never been at the forefront of transforming their industries. Yeah. Right? Whether it's legacy technology stacks or legacy business models that they can't get out of, or legacy mindsets, incumbents have rarely really transformed. But we welcome competition. We welcome the idea that more people will build products for customers that actually make their financial lives easier. And we're a mission-oriented company, which means that it's not just about what Monzo does, but about raising standards across the industry.
So, given your background at the other banks, without wanting to be rude about your former employers, but be rude about your former employers if you like to be, what do you think the biggest sort of changes are that you've experienced in terms of the kind of culture you've got or building at Monzo and the ability to turn things around fast compared with where you come from?
It's impossible to overestimate the value of having a clean slate to start with and truly building an organization which is centered around the customer. So we've built, and what does that mean in practice? Everybody says that they're customer-centric. What does it mean in the context of Monzo? It means that we really listen to our customers. We've built a community of our customers with whom we co-create our products, who we build products with. It means that we will never build a business model which is about, as I said earlier, against the best interests of the customers. The incumbent banking industry for too long has been built around either customers' inertia, their unwillingness to move, customers' vulnerability, right, when customers get over-leveraged, or some version of customers' lack of understanding about how the product actually works. We're building a business model which is really anchored in the daily lives of our customers, which is about making revenues when customers make decisions that are good for them. You don't create that overnight. You can't will it into existence. That's deep in the DNA of what Monzo is. Really caring about the customers and how we communicate with them and not trying to be cute about terms and conditions, not trying to build a model where we make money when they make mistakes. And that is really, really hard to replicate besides everything else, which is an amazing tech stack that we have, entirely microservices built in the cloud, right? Has product velocity and product flexibility better than any banking stack I've ever seen in my life, and I've seen a few.
So as you look ahead, and you've got a very ambitious plan for moving from not just the services you have, but towards all of different areas of financial services. Can you just give me a sense of, if we're sitting here in 10 years' time, what would Monzo be looking like? What is the vision of the integrated bank?
Sure. So our vision is very clearly to be the single app, the single financial control center for all of your financial needs. And the ambition is global. The ambition is clearly to service customers around the world. And in the next decade, we think there will be a handful of companies that do this at scale around the world. And we think Monzo is in pole position to be one of those companies.
What makes you so confident?
What makes me confident is that we've chosen to solve the hardest problems first. Being a regulated bank, making sure that we build this business right, and taking an incredibly long view with how we're building the business. There's lots of ways to grow short-term revenues we walk away from those as we build what we think is the best product. So the business model is a sustainable business model from that perspective, built around sticky revenues, built around really engaging with customers and doing what's right for them. And in the long term, those are the things that really bear fruit.
And just sort of coming back to sort of the regulatory environment, obviously we were both there during the financial crisis. I was at the Financial Times at the time, and you were obviously at sort of traditional banks. And you're going to see a lot of sort of different moves ahead of time, probably from the Bank of England starting to be concerned about assets under management, levels of debt, consumer debt. What are you, again, if you sort of quickly landscape the kind of things that fintechs need to be thinking about right now, that you're also thinking about Monzo, but the sector as a whole should be thinking about as they look at their balance sheets, and not just have they got enough money to last, but what should they be thinking about in terms of credit risk and things right now?
So let's just pick one of those points to begin with, credit risk. Right? We've never at Monzo had the hubris that says we write good software and therefore we must write good loans. Right? We understand that credit is different. It needs different skills. It needs different depth in terms of responsibly underwriting, both in the best interest of the customer, but also the best interest of Monzo. So we've built a business that looks like that. Right? And the magic of Monzo is bringing the best of technology and the best of banking together. So for that particular one, I feel really good about the way we continue to lend responsibly, but also take care of customers through the life cycle, which means everything from how we onboard customers all the way to when customers are vulnerable or in financial difficulties. And in terms of advice to other fintech players, it is to see it like that, because fintech is tech plus fin, right? It's easy to over-index on tech and believe that if you had a great front door, everything else will follow. Yep. That's just not the way it works.
But as you look at the sector, are we going to see big fintech companies going bust because of what we're seeing in the financial markets?
But I hope not. But I do think what will happen is the separation, as I said, between companies that have built a great longer-term business model versus those that have ridden a wave. And we've been focused on building a responsible business model, responsible for customers, but also from a Monzo perspective, because we want to be around for the long term. We're here to service millions of customers in the future, and you don't do that by building a business that is reckless.
But do you think that you've got the advantage of the Monzo had a very high valuation, and that's obviously came back down over the last few years, and you've had to build it back in a different way? Do you think that helps you sort of look at this current market sort of volatility, and therefore you're less worried about the fact that you've already had a big valuation?
Yeah, they said never let a good crisis go to waste, and we certainly, through the pandemic, have continued to become stronger. We've emerged stronger from the pandemic, both in terms of the size of business we are servicing, millions of more customers. Revenues have grown several times over in the last couple of years.
Can you give us a sense of how many customers you have at the moment?
6 million customers, and continue to grow.
And on the revenue side, I don't know what you've disclosed recently.
You'll find out soon.
All right, watch this space, or we'll look at Companies House, I think is what he's saying. As we look at new developments and sort of let's talk about sort of the retail trading platform, how do you think about introducing that to the market?
Sure. Much the same way we've thought about everything else that Monzo has built, which is it starts with listening to customers, trying to figure out what the gaps are in the way they think about investments. And when you look at the market, there's a large segment of customers that are just too scared to even start. They don't know where to begin their investment journey. They don't know what they need to know. And as Monzo, that's who we are, right? We will make sure that we create the transparency, give customers the tools to think about investments, and in that context, allow them to trade. Because really, this is a journey, and our mission has always been about making money work for everyone. And to do that, it does start with really understanding the customer and listening to them and co-creating with them. So that's the heart of who we are, and that's what we will bring to investments as well.
So as you're talking to your customers at the moment, let's talk about crypto. And how do you think about the sort of the crypto landscape on behalf of your customers, given what's happened, in the terms of the extreme volatility in the market and the absolute crash recently?
Sure. So let's break it down first, right? So because when people say crypto, it's a conflation of many different kinds of things. So it's the first piece, right, which is digital currencies, particularly stable coins. I think in the long term have the ability to solve real world problems by bringing down transaction costs, by creating financial inclusion, and so on. So we're watching that space carefully, which is digital currencies in general. The second piece of crypto, of course, is Web3 and DeFi and so on. And I think, again, that has the potential to transform the industry in the coming decade and some. And we're paying close attention to figuring out how we can actually leverage it as part of the Monzo business model. But the question you're asking, of course, is cryptocurrencies and cryptocurrency investing. And here's my view. I think cryptocurrency investing is really only for sophisticated investors. The vast majority of people investing in crypto have invested out of some version of speculation or FOMO-based investing. And that's just not the product we wanted to offer our customers. I think as part of customers getting better educated, and they want to invest a portion in crypto, that's fine. But clearly, recent data shows that nobody needs another very volatile asset class to be thrown at them.
Have you invested in crypto yourself?
Yes.
So how was that for you?
Just watch the charts. It's a small amount of what I have invested, and I put myself in the category of people that have taken a small amount of calculated risk, and I can write that out, and it's fine. It's just not for the lay investor that that thinks crypto is the next thing, and I just want to be on that bandwagon. And I feel like it is for sophisticated investors.
So if we sort of just again look ahead to the sort of future of banking and financial services, you'll be obviously hoping to play at the sort of as a super app level. What does that mean for the traditional banks and financial services companies? Let's say, of course, are they the ones who are going to suffer most with the rise of fintechs in terms of that market share coming away from them? What's your expectation?
I mean, I think that's already happening, right? If you track the data of the last several years, just the relative growth rates of incumbent players versus players like us tells you what's happening from a market share perspective. And the single app, as I said, the single app for all financial services needs, is the vision we're playing for. And I think we can uniquely solve that being Monzo, right? With the tech stack that we have, with the way we build products, we can truly bring that vision to life. And to the extent that it raises the standards for the whole industry, that's a great outcome on this, on the side as well.
So, so if you had to say, if you want to compete in all those different areas you've talked about, how do you sort of prioritize between them all? Because obviously that goes off, your peers are then lots of people. It might be Hargreaves Lansdown, it might be, the traditional banks. How do you look at your peer set at the moment in terms of who your real competitors are?
Yeah, well, look, the honest answer is that the vast majority of the market is still with the incumbent banks. So that really is the market we're up against. And as I said already, I think we're in pole position to benefit from the trends of digitization. As customers experience better and better digital products and digital ways to manage their money, we will obviously continue to benefit from all of that. Your point about prioritization, I think we're playing the long game over here. So we have a roadmap of how and when we're going to get to these different products, and we're sort of staying true to that. And when you're playing the long game, shorter term prioritization becomes less of a thing. You need to be responsive to the environment for sure, but we really are building this for the big ambition and the big vision we have.
You've obviously done something interesting in terms of offering sabbaticals to people who've been there for 4 years recently, and also being very progressive in some of the other assets you're offering to workers. Is that because it's just so hard to recruit sort of the right kind of people at the moment?
So Monzo is banking like it's never been done before. And we wanted to transform banking not just for our customers, but also for our employees, which means creating a culture which is really built around two things, right? The first piece being centered around what's best for customers, and the second piece being about values that we have stayed true to and will continue to stay true to. And the culture continues to evolve. And what it means in this particular context of sabbaticals, as you're saying, is we also recognize that building the ambition that I'm talking about is a marathon, it's not a sprint. And along that journey, some of our staff might want to take a few months off, give themselves the space to, spend time with their families, take a holiday, write a book, travel, or, just take care of themselves. And, we designed that policy in that context to allow tenured employees to take 3 months off, fully paid without worry of job security, and just get that, give themselves that break while they get back on to building out the ambition. Now,
we're out of time, but I want to just pick up on the point about writing a book. And in one of the profiles of you, it says that you write poetry and you're very interested in literature and short stories. Are you turning your life at Monzo into poetry?
It's poetic enough as it is. So I don't need to turn it into anything else. But yeah, it's something I will do at some point. Write more poetry.
So you're not going to go and pen a poem about CogX?
A poem on Monzo, that would be an interesting ask.
All right, so I'm inviting anyone in the audience who wants to write a poem about Monzo to submit it to TS Anil, and we'll have a review next year.
Most definitely, I'd love to do that.
A slam poetry festival organised by by Monzo.
You're full of amazing ideas, Caroline.
So I'm afraid we're out of time, and it says the word wrap in front of me, which doesn't mean anything to do with sandwiches. And thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much for the panel today.
Pleasure, Caroline. Thank you.